Morne.
Hello, Morne. It's Don, Gareth and Skulk on the Sports Illustrated show on Loud Radio. How are you, mate?
All right, and you, Don?
I'm good.
How's it, fellas?
Hey, Morne. Good to speak to you.
Yeah, lucky, though.
Sorry, it's Gareth here. How's it going?
All right, and you, Gareth? Good to speak to you, buddy.
Yeah, Morne, so, I mean, obviously, we had a chat about a couple of the hot issues, and I thought you could just take us through the weekend in Currie Cup, and then looking forward, what's going to happen in the semi-finals in the playoff game.
Yeah, no problem. Look, a couple of the teams, or 3 of the 4 teams have been released already. Obviously, as always, waiting on the Sharks again. But, the first semi-final in dirt, if I could describe it in one word, I think it's going to be spicy. That is really going to be the big one of the weekend, I think. And for more than the obvious reasons that the boys will be playing for a final spot, I think, with what's happened in the last couple of months, and obviously what's happened with the Springbok and Springbok selections and Heineke and game plans, from social media, as you guys would know as well, I think one of the larger groups of people that leveled their unhappiness against Heineke was the Sharks boys. That felt that most of their boys should have been in there in place of a lot of the Bull selections. And I've lived in Pretoria for a couple of years, and I can tell you what, those boys, those rock fighters, they're very emotional when it comes to their rugby, but they also have a proud rugby culture as well. And I reckon that a lot of the guys, the Blue Bulls guys, will be perhaps going out there on Saturday to prove a point, to perhaps show the guys that, their selections in the Springbok side is deserved.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one thing I picked up, I haven't seen too much of the footage from this weekend, but apparently Lambie at fly half was exceptional on Friday against Griquas, and with Johan Goosen out injured and the Bok Tour looming, we could see a battle for first choice fly half for the Springbok selection between Morne and Patrick on Saturday.
Absolutely. It's going to be the key matchup of the one that everybody's going to look out for is the, Morne said also got a man of the match against the Lions last week. So the two men of the match boys go up against each other. Lambie was exceptional. I don't think Morne was that great on last weekend, but it's one of the matchups that's going to be key.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to get Morne back, get Morne's head back into the right space. So let's give him a man of the match, make him think that he's loved.
Pretty much. Guys mentioned on Twitter the week that they said, Joel felt sorry for Morne, and hence the punter, they selected the man of the match awards there. But, also, guys, I think it's important to remember that finals rugby is a bit different, eh? And I read the report to the extended weather forecast for Saturday, and I'm afraid it's going to be bad news. It looks like it's going to pour down on Saturday in Durban. Kicking is going to be essential. And I think if Morne, he approaches this game with a calm, level-headed, or he's calm and level-headed into going into this game, tactical kicking is going to be of vital importance. And Morne having played there, or having played more regularly at fly-off, I think he's got a better kicking game than Lambie. It's going to be very interesting, and the wet conditions is going to make it even more interesting.
Yeah, but by the same token, I mean, from my perspective, I think Patrick Lambie's probably the best wet weather exponent of rugby in the country when it comes to key positions like fly-off and fullback. Some of his biggest games have been there. I mean, I remember he played a game against Province at fullback a few years back where he was 19 and he was just unbelievable. And then you look at his Currie Cup final performance against Province a couple of years ago. Also, the not too pleasant weather, so it's going to be interesting to say the least. And then the other one, obviously, we've got the Lions up against Province. The Lions essentially put out a second string team, which didn't look like a second string team until you saw them make 11 changes yesterday to their starting lineup, and then Province rattled by injuries to 3 of their returning bocks.
Yeah, absolutely. 11 changes for the Lions. That's a lot. And the one thing that this could, count against them, obviously, is just the old momentum type of thing. Will they carry momentum into the semi-final? But having a look at the Province side as well, and Becker is obviously out, Tian is out, those are 2 vital injuries. Again, a kicking game on the high fly is going to be vital. With a lot of kicking, tactical kicking, comes a lot of line-outs. And Becker is a main guy in the line-outs, doing the calls, making the calls. Tian, obviously the first choice hooker. If there's anything about Skyra that concerns me, he's a brilliant little player with a huge future ahead of him, but his line-up work is not that great.
Yeah, and neither is Farees.
Sorry, go ahead.
And neither is Dion Farees. And the other news that's just come out in the last half an hour, Jean de Villiers is also out injured.
Yeah, John is out. Captain is out.
Yep.
You know, if before, after the Cheetahs game on the weekend, if you had to ask me then, what's going to happen in Joburg, I would have said Province can take this quite easily. But given the fact that I think their lineups are going to struggle, and looking at this Lions pack and their tight five, you got JC, you got Jacobi starting with Disa and CJ or Pat on the bench, a lot of experience. And their tight five is what's carried the Lions through the season. They laid the foundation for the Bulls to go wild at the back. And I see Province struggling, not only in the scrums, I see them struggling at the lineup. And once you start struggling in your first phase approach, there's a little chance of you actually making it in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Morne, another thing that you've touched on there, and I think that you've got some views on this, I think we all do as well, is all these injuries you've mentioned. What is that going to mean looking forward to the end of your tour for the Boks? We just being so decimated. The Cheetahs, they're going into these playoff games minus basically all their Springboks. How's it looking? Who's going to make up this team if there's no one left at this stage?
Well, I tell you what, I don't want to be in Heineke's shoes. It could be either exciting for young boys. He gets in and he gets a chance on a 3-match tour to the UK. But B, Jake took a team over, in similar circumstances many years back, and we can all remember the men against boys sort of quote that he made at the time. When England absolutely overpowered the Boks at that stage. I don't think obviously it's quite in that sort of scenario, as a couple of years back. But the injuries are a major concern, and the boys are breaking down. I mean, it's not only South Africa. Australia's been talking about it a lot. I read a comment of Currie Cup from the Rugby Club on Twitter as well, where he says, he's afraid to check his mailbox because every time he gets a mail from the ARU, it's another Aussie down with an injury. So the amount of rugby these boys are playing is certainly taking its toll. And Heineke has mentioned it to death in the last couple of weeks. The mainstream media boys has also brought this up. We need to manage our players better. There's simply too much rugby, and the boys are breaking down, and they're breaking down at a rate.
And I mean, talking to that, you look at the amount of injuries that, as you said, the Bokke and the Aussies are having, and then you look at New Zealand rugby, and they don't have too many that are missing, or they've had their injuries through the season, but the guys come back and they don't seem to relapse. And over and above that, they haven't put any of their top end guys back into the ITM Cup. So they manage their players. Richie's been given a sabbatical from Super Rugby for next year, so they want to obviously try and keep him going for another couple of seasons. And then, I mean, in this country, we're running out of hookers. Tian's now injured, Busy's out, Bandisu's only just coming back, so he'd probably an inside call, and Chili Boy for the overseas tour. So maybe they are on their way back, but I mean, you as a hooker in this country right now, you worry about whether you're going to be playing the next game. Morne? Hello?
I think he's gone.
Oh dear,
we lost him.
You want to try and give him a call back? I also think there on that point, semi-finals and finals, you could only expect us to lose another 1 or 2, maybe 3 of the Boks if they are playing.
No doubt.
So I mean, what kind of trouble are we going to be in a while? I mean, there's JP Peterson's coming back, and you don't want to. I mean, touch wood, nobody else goes down because.
Yeah, this is true.
Sorry, lads.
No, it's all right. No problem.
We had a dramatic pause for your answer and thought you didn't like the question.
I was talking and then it was gone, yeah. Look, coming back to the management of the players, I think we all know the answer. The New Zealand boys are doing it differently, and guess what? It's working. It's not like we have to reinvent the wheel in South Africa as well. I mean, obviously we are not New Zealand. There are complications. There are other issues to consider. But your players are your biggest assets, and it's a massive problem. Like you guys mentioned the hooker situation, and Jean breaking down, and Becker's always breaking down. That's another story. But I mean, the boys are suffering. They are really suffering from all the game time and the high intensity of the matches that they have to play, and being Super Rugby and obviously Test matches. We need to change our approach. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, Morne, I mean, the one thing I've seen is an attitude to this where you say, we can't play the guys every week. The comeback from a lot of guys on Twitter and stuff is, yeah, but the unions pay them, the unions must get their money worth. And I think with that, if you just see that kind of general attitude, then you understand how these administrators must be feeling, how the unions must be feeling. But it's quite an interesting thing because once the guys are injured, they're gone anyway. So you've got to have reserves, you've got to have backups that are good enough. And I think you see with New Zealand prepared to blood a Matt Todd or something, yes, you might lose a game or 2 or that you might have won you don't know that. But once the guy's gone, he's gone. Yeah. And then who've you got to come in and replace him? If a guy who's got no experience and at that level.
Yeah, look, I mean, the problem, I agree 100%. You know, it's not a problem that we can just put a band-aid over and think, you know, one change or one, approaching something just slightly differently is going to make all the changes in the world. It has to happen across all levels. You know, it could start with possibly centrally contracting the box because, you know, you can't pay unions for paying these guys. You know, they pay their salaries at the end of the day. And it's like any other professional environment. So SARU needs to step in some way, you know, negotiate with the unions to get on a more centralized contracting system, you know, even if only for the top 10 or 15 most valuable players identified by the Springbok coach. You know, but something needs to get done. I mean, I don't think we can get away from that.
Yeah, I mean, I had a thought on that the other day, and it's something that because you need to get into a situation where you've got the players centrally contracted like they are in New Zealand. Now, it's probably going to be too costly an affair to try and do it with the senior players and the guys that have been around and are around. But what's to stop SARU starting to centrally contract players straight out of school? You'd stop them. You'd stop them being pilfered by the other countries, and you then tie them into the South African Rugby Union, who can then basically lease them out to the unions, and you've got control over the players. And in 10 years' time, the bulk of your playing players in the country are now under contract with SARU without having to do anything major.
I think that's a brilliant point, you know, for two reasons. I mean, obviously for the obvious reason that you mentioned, that, you know, the old guys that are currently playing and what we refer to as our top blokes, it's going to be difficult to get the unions to change their minds now with that, you know. And it's not going to be a quick fix. I mean, whatever approach we decide to take, it's going to be something we start now, and it's going to have a long-term effect. And given Russie's role within the Springbok setup, where he is looking after, you know, the national setup from under 16 level through to the senior side, it is definitely an area SARU can approach or can implement something right now, without so much as having to go to unions and beg and plead to renegotiate, you know, whatever current agreements are in place at the moment.
Absolutely. One thing I did want to touch on, because Baywatch is coming to an end after 9 seasons. Baywatch Schroebler is retiring from all rugby at the end of this year. 120 odd games, 112 Currie Cup games for the Lions. Basically a one franchise man. Could be his last game on Saturday, and the Lions are giving him a percentage of the gate takings at Ellis Park, or Coca-Cola Park. What do they call it now?
But why? Because is it because he did not earn a salary while he was there? Why do people still get fucking benefit years? I'm sorry. Why is he getting a percentage of the gate?
Because he stayed with the Lions.
Sorry.
Because he stayed there.
Sorry, Morne, please continue.
Look, it's almost a case of having your cake and eating it. You know, we are begging people to become professional, yet we hang on to these little amateur sort of like, you know, institutions or things how we used to do it. You know, on Baywatch, a great player. You know, I've loved him. People refer to this type of guy as the salt of the earth type of player. You know, unlucky possibly never to get to higher honours. I think it's a nice gesture. But yeah, the Lions are not the union to throw money around these days, are they? They're not in a position to do that. They should coin on every single opportunity that they can get at this point of time.
They're probably not giving Province their cut.
They're probably counting on Cobus Grobler to do the right thing and give the money back.
Donate to charity.
They're probably just very sad that he didn't retire after Super Rugby halfway through there. If he'd gone out on a game at home against the Cheetahs, 10% would have been one person's gate money. But there should be a crowd there on Saturday, I would say, for Province.
And then talking retirements, we may as well get on to the spice of the week, because that Bryce Lawrence has hung up his whistle after 200 first-class games, blaming South African fans and the vitriol against him, and then saying that he was put under pressure by guys like John O'Neill. I know Gareth has been quite wound up about this, about as much as I have. Because it's frustrating. I mean, you're a professional referee. If you don't think you're going to be able to handle the pressure of a World Cup quarter-final, you should tell them that you don't want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm with Gareth, you know, and you know, I think for a second, forget about the quarter-final.
Yeah.
And even the Super Rugby final that he ref that game, I mean, It was utter crap. We all know that. And we've made it known to him as well. My problem with this is, as we always or sometimes refer to as a player not selecting himself, my biggest issue with this is, what sort of competency tests or psychometric tests does the IRB or SANZAR or any of these refereeing bodies put refs through to ensure that not only they know the laws, which, you or myself or any average rugby supporter can go onto the internet, download it for free, go write the online exams. We can all study the laws. It's not the problem knowing the laws. It's applying them, but applying them competently. Are they prepared, or are they given the tools to manage a game properly? And that includes dealing with pressure.
Yeah,
and I think it's a vital point in professional rugby that is overlooked.
That's a very valid point, because just about every international team now has a mental conditioning coach, and you wonder whether the Referees Association have actually got one. But look, over and above that, from my perspective, I personally think Bryce Lawrence is a classic case of nepotism. His dad is heavily involved in the IRB and refereeing, and he's ended up becoming an international referee when I don't believe he's of the standards to be one, never mind Super Rugby. And he's now going to be taking up a role as New Zealand's Rugby Union's high-performance referee reviewer. Lord help us.
Well, they made him the ref of the year last year, so I suppose it's natural progression.
Yeah, do you know?
From a New Zealand perspective.
Do you know who he was contending against for ref of the year last year in New Zealand? A female referee, and Glenn Jackson, who's in his first season.
Well, I think he was New Zealand Personality of the Year after scuppering us from the thing. I mean, he basically handed the... Anyway. Morne, you brought up a great point there about the psychometric testing and stuff. And, I think it's not that we want to be criticizing referees, but the thing that frustrates me is that they're quick to tell us about the lengthy assessments and stuff that they go through. And I've seen the process that they go through, which is all good and well. But I think... what Bryce Lawrence has opened up this can of worms is he's come out and said, oh no, he froze, that was his first thing, and then the pressure was too much, and there was pressure put on him and stuff. I think it's opened up a can of worms to say, like, refs aren't always right, and no one wants to say, oh, you were wrong because you were cheating or taking money or anything like that. Maybe just have to say, on this day maybe the pressure was too much, and how does the next guy who gets into a World Cup, I mean, maybe some good could come of this, because they can say, are you under pressure? Is there anything that's stopping you from doing your job? And they can start looking at refs like that, because I think that they are human, some better humans than other humans. But I mean, I just think they've got to look at them and say, okay, now we've made this mistake. There's a guy who's completely blanked and messed up a game, but can we stop that from happening to anyone else? Because it's something that shouldn't happen. And I think that every time anyone criticizes refs, there's a blanket answer to say we stand by our ref and he did the right thing and stuff, even if everyone can see maybe this wasn't the right thing.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm never one to defend, a ref as crap as Bryce in any case. But, I mean, credit to the dude where he came out and he had a critical self-assessment of his game, and he knew he was bad. He knew the mistakes he made. The question, like you just, mentioned now again and amplified the point, what is going to be done about that? It's probably something a guy like Andre Watson can answer from a South African perspective. Are refs, when they analyze refs, do they actually look at the competency of a ref psychologically? His ability to manage pressure situations, and if those sort of tests are in place. I mean, it's something coaches are subjected to, it's something players are subjected to, and if you don't have what we refer to players as BMT, you're not going to make it at the highest level. Now, the same has to go for refs, surely.
Yep, valid point. Morne, before we let you go, quick thoughts on the final calls on the semis this weekend?
Well, I know, Gareth, you're a big money man, or the betting man. I'm going to go with an upset at Kings Park. It's going to be wet. I think the Bulls boys are going to wanting to come out and prove something. Not the case of the boys being or wanting it more. I believe any team wants it enough to want to win. I think they're going to be a bit more desperate, and the more desperate team sometimes wins. I'm going to go for an upset at Kings Park with the Bulls over the Sharks, and the final will be played at Coca-Cola Park in a week's time between the Lions and the Bulls.
Very interesting.
I'm going to go with you on the Sharks upset, being upset in Durban, but I think that the final's going to be here in Cape Town. Personally,
you just don't want to travel like me, eh? I would hope so. I would hope that it is in Cape Town. It's just the injuries to the province, forwards, concerns me.
No, absolutely. Morne from RuggaWorld, thanks so much. People, if you want to follow him and his views on Twitter, it's at RuggaWorld. And the website, ruggaworld.co.za.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, lads. Great chat. Thanks.
Great chat. Thanks, Morne.
Enjoy the rest of the day. Thanks very much for your time.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.